find a place to live, because I go through a few iterations of this while I'm doing the couch surfing between Carrie's place and Hadley's place. In one of the places, I end up finding somebody through Craigslist who is I think she's a law student who just graduated Columbia University, and she's moved to Los Angeles to get her doctorate in something. I don't even remember what that was. She has purchased a house in a part of the city that's not safe, is all I will say. A part of the city that is not safe. So now it's not like the most unsafe place in the city, but it's pretty dang close. And I've never been there. Yes, I know in that moment I was naive. I'm sorry. I always learn from my mistakes though. Almost always. So I don't even remember. We'll just call her Roberta. So Roberta, she's bought a house. She's looking for a roommate. I go out to meet her at her house, which is pretty cute. It's in a normal, typical Los Angeles area, meaning it's not a $5 million home, but it's not a shack. It's just kind of a normal area. Yeah, the street could be a little bit cleaner and it's a tiny bit sketch, but that's just how life is. But I still don't have peace. And by the way, I hate it when people say, what do you have peace about? Shush. I'm beyond tired of people just saying, go with your peace. Well, sometimes in some situations, you have to make a move regardless of whether you feel you have peace or not. You can't be in the middle of the road and be like, do I go to the left? Do I go to the right? Just get out of the dang road. It doesn't matter which side you have peace about, move. That's where I was. So with Roberta, I liked the place. I wasn't exactly sure about it though. I felt a little uneasy. During the daytime, I went by there multiple times. It was great. It was a little different than what I was used to. But once again, I'd visited Los Angeles multiple times. So I felt like, well, I don't think this place is bad, but I didn't have the best feeling about it. I end up having to house sit for Daisy and Jude because they have a family emergency that takes them out of town for the better part of a week. So I end up being able to stay at their place by myself, trying to figure things out, taking care of their cute little dog, which we'll talk about another day, because at one point I thought I'd lost the dog, but she just burrowed under the covers, but I was terrified. But anyway, I didn't lose her. So I'm at this house, the house that's in Culver City, and I'm just trying to think things through. It's come down to the point where I'm going to move into this house in the not safe area of the city with Roberta, and I still don't have peace about it. So I get a cashier's check to give her the, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the down payment, so to speak, or the deposit. And because it's Los Angeles, it's like a $3,000 check because it's first month's rent and then a security deposit for damages. So unfortunately, that's very common, maybe even on the low side of places like Los Angeles and New York. So when you're getting ready to move someplace, you better have anywhere at least bare minimum of $2,500. Bare minimum, closer to probably $4,000 or $5,000, which is a lot of money. But I have it. So I go and get a cashier's check, and I'm supposed to give it to her. It's a Saturday morning. I'm supposed to drive and go give it to her, and I still don't have any full-on peace about it. So I go to the local precinct that's near her, and I go in, and there's 2 cops there. And it's not a busy, Saturday morning, it's not a busy day, etc. And I go up to the counter, kind of like what you would see on a TV show. And I look up at them and say, hey, I know this is a strange question, but I'm getting ready to move, and I wanted to know if I could get your opinion on this address. And I just start to show them the address, and literally as if it was good cop, bad cop, the one cop says, get that out of here. We can't see that. We can't give you any opinions on whether something is safe or not. And his partner goes, go get some coffee. Go get some coffee. And he goes, hey, let me see the address. And so he looks at it and he goes, just like a little flash of, I'm like, uh-oh. He's like, listen, he's right. We can't legally tell you if it's safe or not safe. He says, but, and I can't remember the name of the actual website. He said, you can go on crimefinder.com and put in the zip code. Crimefinder.com, which is not the real thing, by the way. It may still be another thing, but who knows? So he told me to go to this website and put the address in, and you'll see what goes on crime-wise in that area. So I did. I got back into the car. I look it up. I'm like, ugh, it looks pretty dangerous. But to me at this point, coming from a flyover state, it all looks dangerous. And being homeless is even more dangerous. So I'm like, oh, what do I do? Once again, I'm still supposed to go give her this cashier's check. So I go back to the house that I'm taking care of for Jude and Daisy. And the whole way there, I am just praying. I'm feverishly praying because I'm kind of cranky at this point. I'm like, God, listen, You have got to help me. This is it. I'm going to go do this. If you don't stop me, I'm literally going to go put this money down and I'm going to live there. Like, I'm kind of angry at God. And also, like, I'm just kind of telling him what's going to happen. So I pull up to Jude and Daisy's house, and there is a man there named Trevor, and he is mowing the lawn. He takes care of the lawn. Trevor's pretty interesting because how Trevor came into their life, the short version of the story, and I'll leave a lot of details out, but the short version of the story, where their church is, it's part of a park. So like just a like normal Parks and Rec park. So Trevor met Jude and Daisy because there was one day that Jude was just preaching outside, as he does on Sundays sometimes. And anybody can hear, anybody and everybody's welcome. The congregation sits there like picnic style, but people can hear and they can be part of it. And so at one point in the past, Trevor, who is mowing the lawn at the house, a little important backstory, Trevor used to be the leader of a gang. And on occasion, on Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings, the gang would get together and plan out their day and the events for the next few days and talk about how the days just went. At one point, after, I guess, hearing a specific sermon from Jude, Trevor kind of got hit of like, hey, listen, maybe for me, maybe this isn't what I should be doing. Maybe I have a different life that I could live. That's a whole other story for another time. But the gist of it is, Trevor went up to Jude and said, listen, this God that you talk about, tell me more. And Jude's like, okay, well, so he starts telling him about God. And Trevor said, listen, I have this rival gang member, or this leader of another gang, and we've tried to kill each other multiple times. And he keeps messing it up. And when I try and kill him, I still mess it up. We're both still alive. And basically, I feel like maybe I shouldn't want to kill him anymore. And I don't even know why. But listening to what you said the past couple of weeks, I feel like maybe I should apologize, and I don't want to apologize. Long story short, Trevor gives up that life and that lifestyle and tries to make peace with the other people, the other gang, that's a whole other interesting story. But for our purposes of today, while I'm parked right in front of Jude and Daisy's house, Trevor is mowing the lawn. I've met Trevor at their church a couple of times, and Trevor's basically lived in the Los Angeles area his entire life, and he hasn't met a lot of people who aren't from Los Angeles. So the few times I've seen him before at the church and at different events, he's always asking me different questions like, Kelly, what was that like? Like, so you drove out here with all of your stuff? Like, what did your people think about that? Do you have people? Your people are back home? Are they okay with it? So he's all these interesting questions, but sometimes because there's so many questions, I get a little overwhelmed talking to him because like I'm already panicking enough. I don't know if I can answer more questions. And when I see Trevor, as I pull up, I'm like, I don't know if I can handle this today. But he means no harm. And like, wow, look at all the stuff that he's been able to endure and change his life. It's a big deal. So I get out the car. He turns off the lawnmower. He's like, hey, Kelly, what are you doing? I was like, they probably told you, but I'm taking care of the house while Jude and Daisy are gone. He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm just taking care of the lawn. I'm almost done. He said, hey, have you had any luck finding a place to live? Because now people in the church and the community are starting to understand, hey, I'm still looking. So I said, well, actually, I'm on my way to go give this woman a check for my deposit. He goes, well, do you remember the address? And I was like, no. So I took the check out and handed it to him. And he sees the address and he goes, oh, Kelly. I was like, well, what? This is my old gang territory. He said, listen, I just don't know that this would be the best place for you. But I mean, I do still have connections. I could tell them to leave you alone. You do have a specific look. So a tall redhead they would not mess with, but they might forget. He said also, they would probably try and break in your car on a regular basis because they do that. Like he explained how the whole thing worked. I was like, okay. He's like, so I could talk to them, but they might forget. But then I could talk to them again if anything happens. So I was like, okay, there's your answer, Kelly. You're not going to move to that place. If I had not known Trevor and Trevor had not been there in that exact moment, I would probably lived in a place that I shouldn't have been living in. So great. I'm freaking back to square one. Now I still got to find another dang place to live. So I called the woman, by the way, that day and said, hey, listen, I'm really sorry. I've actually talked to some people and I just don't feel comfortable. So, this is not a huge earth-shattering thing for her. It's just, she got to go through the process again. No big, she probably wasn't thrilled with it, but it's not horrible. Then I'm going to keep trying to find a place to live. I'm still trying to juggle couch surfing between 3 or 4 different places at this point. Some places are a little bit safer than others, I might add. But the next time that I'm looking for another place, because this one's not going to work, I have many conversations with many people, but I end up having a conversation via, I think it was roommates.com. You can chat on the app, and then if you like hit it off well enough, you can actually start directly message each other. So that's what we did. So this woman is a nurse at one of the hospitals in just north of Culver City, etc. And she lives in what looks like a fairly decent place. I've only seen pictures of it online, but she's like, hey, why don't you come by? And when I get off work, tomorrow, why don't you come by when I get off work? And by this time, by the way, it's October. It's got to be mid-October, maybe later at this point. So the sun's starting to go down like it's 6 o'clock, or, it's getting darker much earlier. And so she says, hey, why don't you come over tomorrow and you can look at the apartment, we can talk and meet each other. And so I said, that's great. I had on my profile, I'd put a lot about me. I'd put my website so people could just have an idea of who I was. And so far, she'd researched me, I'd researched her from what I could, and it seemed like a good idea at that time. I'm on my way the next day. She gets off work like at 6. When I get there, by the time I get there, it's going to be dark. It's dusk as I'm driving. As I am driving, my friend, I never thought of a good fake name for her. We'll call her Betsy. So my friend that still lives in the flyover state from my home state, Betsy, who's a friend of mine, calls me while I'm driving. So I thought, well, I'll just talk to her while I'm driving. She's like, hey, what are you doing? I was like, well, actually, I'm getting ready to go meet somebody at an apartment that I might move into. She's like, where'd you meet this person? I met them on a website. Kelly, that sounds so dangerous. I was like, listen, this is just how it's done here. So she said, well, tell me more. I said, well, I'm going to go meet her. I think she's a nurse, if I understand correctly. And this is her name. And this is roughly the part of the city that it's in. Well, Betsy's really good in the moment of like getting online, doing a Google Street View and seeing where I am and where I'm going so she can see what it looks like. And she says, hey, wait a second. Isn't it like almost getting dark out there right now? I said, well, yeah, it's going to be dark here in just a second. She said, wait a second. So you're going to meet a person you've never met before when it's dark at an apartment you've never gone to before. Well, yes. When you put it that way, it sounds dangerous. But yes, that's what I'm going to do. She said, Kelly, that's why. That's just not a good idea. Well, I'm out of options, and I have couch surfed, and I'm tired of it, and all of my stuff is in the garage over at Jude and Daisy's, and I'm on an emotional roller coaster. Betsy says, listen, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to stay on the phone with you until you get out of the car and until you see this person. We'll call this person Julie. Now, I guess that'd be too confusing, wouldn't it? We'll call her Violet, just because I have something that's Violet nearby. So you're going to meet this potential roommate named Violet. Fine. So Betsy says, hey, when you see Violet, then you're going to hang up on me. And she goes, I'm going to set a timer. And if I don't hear back from you one way or the other, via text or a phone call in 15 minutes, I'm going to call you. And if you don't answer, I'm going to call your local police to come and find you. I was like, okay, fair enough. Because at this point I realized, Kelly, this may not have been the smartest thing you've ever done because you've never actually physically talked to this person. You have never laid eyes on them. You've never been to this apartment. You could be walking into an alley getting kidnapped forever. So I thought, dang, Betsy's not wrong. I see Violet. Violet has me come in through the side entrance, not the normal big front entrance for the building. Also, I feel a little nervous about that, but I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Make her walk around to the front? And she has a brace on her knee because I guess she'd had knee surgery recently. So I'm not going to make her, walk around and be stupid. So I meet her. She seems and looks like a nice, normal person. We get up to her apartment. She had just gotten home, I guess, 5 minutes before me. We get up to her apartment and she opens the door. And here's where I start to get a little scared. There are no lights turned on at all, except for one teeny tiny curio cabinet light in the far, far off corner. Now, yes, I know she's only been home for 5 minutes, but there are no other lights on. I can barely see her. So now I'm thinking, okay, oh crap, what is this? And it's one of those things, I know I should have, but I didn't even want to say like, hey, can we turn on some lights? Because the fact that you haven't turned on lights now freaks me out. And now I am scared. And now I'm trying to pay attention to my surroundings that I can barely see. We sit down at her table. So, and the area is huge, like it's huge, huge. And from what little I can see from the curio cabinet light, it looks okay. There's some furniture in there, and I think there's some decorations. It's kind of hard to tell. So we sit down at her table. We have a good maybe 15-minute conversation. She's a nurse. I think that was really cool. One of my loved ones is a doctor. So we talk a little bit about that. She says, hey, based even just on like talking to you through text and your website, I really like your vibe. And I get that comment a lot, and it makes me happy when I hear it, because if they don't like my vibe, it's probably not going to work. Anyway, we end up having a good conversation, but still no lights are turned on at all. So I look around, and she's like, oh, do you want to see the rest of the place? Yes, I do. How do I tell her, please turn on the lights? I know you're like, Kelly, just tell her to turn on the lights. I'm afraid if I tell her to turn off the lights, people are going to come out and attack me immediately. At least if it's dark and whatever's going to happen, like I might be able to navigate my way out of it. Do not do this. Do not be stupid. This was not a smart thing. You should always have the ability, when you feel uncomfortable about anything with anybody, you should say something. And I should have said something. Anyway, she doesn't turn on any of the lights at all. So much so, I've had to turn the flashlight on my phone so I can see where we're going. She takes me down it's a pretty wide hallway in her apartment, and my bedroom would be at the end of the hallway. Now, for whatever reason, what I thought was interesting, there is a huge, huge, huge window that looks out on kind of I don't know what to call it, like a patio area of the apartment building. And so people can kind of see into where we're at, and I can see them. So I'm like, okay, well, she won't kill me or murder me or anything right then. Once again, she's going to show me the room. She doesn't turn on the light. And the light switch isn't anywhere on the wall where I can feel it to turn it on myself. I don't know where the light switch is. Doesn't turn on the light at all. So at that point, I am internally very freaked out. And I can see that Betsy's going to call me here just like literally any moment. So she actually calls me, and which is good, because then I'm like, hey, oh yeah, hey, hold on just a second. It's like, hey, you know what, Violet, I gotta go. Thank you so much. She said, hey, would you want to come back and look again tomorrow? Like, sure. So I keep Betsy on the phone while I walk back to my car. And so she says, well, what did you think? So I told her everything. Hey, the woman seemed really nice, but she would not turn on any of the lights on her own. Like, I'm surprised she didn't trip. I don't understand why you would not have the lights on, but that's another story. So that was yet another person that I decided that I could not live with. Long story short, I never found permanent accommodations in Los Angeles. That's more stories for another day, but I thought you'd all find this interesting because there's some crazy crap I did that I hope you might not ever do. Now, at some point, you're also going to hear the story of me trying to find work in Los Angeles. That is a little bit crazier even than these stories that I've told you today. As in everything, I hope you learn from the brave things I've done. I hope you learn from the stupid things I've done. And I hope this has been entertaining and informative. So, have a good one, and I can't wait to see you again.